think there is this mindset of, holy shit, we're going to see these super platforms. I honestly think it's going to be very different, because I think like the value capture is lying in those very tailored interfaces.
What about the tooling?
Yeah, I think like if you talk about redefining the tooling, it's a really interesting question in the current times we're in, because it is rare that we're talking so much about software. It's like, and the whole world is talking about it right now, right? And we are seeing all the sort of traditional platforms that is some of the biggest companies in the world, right? We have Salesforce, we have SAP, Google, Amazon, all these ones are coming out with their play, you can say, on this one here. You're even now starting to talk about those platforms as becoming the new super platforms, which I think is super, super interesting to think about, right? How we have approached this from day one and how we saw this playing out. We're sort of like, all larger platforms is essentially gonna be sort of RPA 3.0, intelligent automation platforms that are good at sort of their general space. So let's take an ERP, right? SAP, they're doing a great play with SAP Duals, which is their horizontal agent going across all those different business functions that they are supporting in their ERP. And then you have another shift, which is like those vertical solutions where you typically see that they go very, very deep in certain workflows, but also at the same time there generate significant value. And I think just before I ask you your point of view on it, I just want to share a blog post that Eric Schmidt did in 2023. So around just after everybody had the ChatGPT moment, he wrote a blog post with one of his a founder of one of the companies he's invested in. And I think that was really like nailing it, precise and very clear. He did this graph, and maybe we can show it actually in this clip here, where you sort of see value on one axis and you see workflows in enterprise on another axis. And then you sort of see where is the big value capture. And you can see the specialized models lie in the high ranges, and then you see the more generalized systems and AI models sort of in the long tail. And why is that? It's essentially not different than what we have seen before playing out in software, right? You had these platforms, let's just take one we know really well, right? E-commerce platforms. You saw, what could you say, those shaping out, having different sort of like core functionalities to really do e-commerce well end to end. So you had the whole commerce engine, you had the whole PIM, you had the, what can you say, what is it called, like analytics, all these different things playing out, marketing suites and so on. I think Adobe is a beautiful example of this one, right? They built up their whole experience cloud, so did SAP and so on. Here, what I'm saying, my point is just, I think we are gonna see the same. People are just in this confusion right now that they believe that, or some enterprises believe, it's gonna be the SAPs and the Salesforces of the world. Now they can suddenly do everything, this super platform. But you still need to have systems that go very deep and specialize in that space. And I actually think it's going to be amplified. And that's my question to you. So what is your thoughts on why sort of like the next phase we are going to hear everybody, or next thing I think we're going to hear everybody talk about is like, yes, the enterprise is going autonomous. The tooling we need for that is suddenly even more important than ever, because we don't want static systems just taking input. We want when the human is needed on the loop, not in the loop, but on the loop, or maybe also in the loop, we want it to be as efficient as possible in those moments. So agent to human, essentially. Could you talk a little bit about like that tooling that is coming and why that is so important? And why it's maybe not just going to be chat interfaces that is going to rule the world?
Yeah, what we see across our customers and the processes that we are engaged in the B2B commerce space, they are inherently cross-platform and very complex. The people are executing this across CRMs, CPQs, BIM systems, ERP systems, pricing engines, sometimes some even Excel files stored in some SFTP server. So they're inherently complicated processes spread across different systems. And there comes the moment where you need a platform that can execute across all of those platforms. And of course, there will be also agents provided by all of those platforms, but they operate as a natural language API towards that platform. But you need to execute a prolongated workflow across different systems.
I think you're totally right in that one. Sort of like that you have these agents that are via MCP protocols or whatever these standards that are coming out now will have an easy way of fetching information across those things. Completely agree, and we are also on our side actually preparing that now, right? So it's easy to do agent to agent, but also like our data can actually be accessible by other agents if the enterprises want to open that up. Another thing I was also thinking about actually in this regard here was a little more, even more tangible, sort of like it's been like in some years now that we've been talking about this AI-assisted human. And now we are going into tooling that is actually more like human-assisted AI to a certain degree, and then you go to autonomy. And that's sort of like when you have the agent to the human communication happening, or this decisioning happening. I want you to speak a bit about sort of the experience. What do you see there, and why is it that potentially here we are going to see a mirage of vertical platforms coming out that are tailored to exactly making that sort of like cooperation between the two extremely efficient?
I think you actually nailed it very well, because as you say, you need to have a space where agent can meet a human, maybe another human, maybe even another agent, to resolve a problem in the context of the vertical that we are serving. If you look at the B2B commerce, B2B commerce is not about chats or high-level conversations. It's all about documents. It's like purchase orders, official quotations, certifications, sometimes even engineering documents and drawings and schemas.
And on top of that, decisions, right? On like what to do, commercial decisions, standard logic, small, big decisions, right?
Exactly. And it's not something that you, even as a human, it's not that you just pick up the phone and have a brief conversation. You typically would like to show the document outline. This is the context of the challenge. And this is exactly what you also need to provide to a human, to the agent, but also that agent needs to provide you when they need the help.
Yeah. And it's also, I think, one of the things, if I, for example, was a decision maker or leader in an enterprise listening into this, one of the things that IT always has been challenged with is that they had to balance between creating sort of like full dependency on a few very strong vendors and sort of bringing in, what can we say, some of those platforms that really were bringing additional benefits and features and ROI into the sort of companies. And what I mean here is like, there were always this dual, like you don't want to create silos in the enterprises of like solutions that are like just working here, all these different things, or in different markets you have different solutions, versus you don't want to end up in like having 3 vendors that you are super dependent on. My view, and I would look forward to hearing yours. I know a little bit about it, but I think here it's really interesting right now. As I also started out talking about, like I think there is this mindset of holy shit, we're going to see these super platforms. I honestly think it's going to be very different, because I think like the value capture is lying in those very tailored interfaces. So the agents is doing all those things in the back, all these agentic systems and all that stuff is now capable of doing all these things as we talked about. And then you're gonna see platforms, actually many more interfaces and platforms that you have seen before. Because you want, for that specific workflow in that specific area of the business, you want, you can say, for the decision making to be as smooth as possible. They need to have exactly what they need in that context to take decisions, the agent and the human. and the same with this other department and so on. So my point is here is just the underlying technology actually opens up for avoiding silos, even though you actually create more interfaces and more applications out there. Because these agents are, you will see like they can work across the platforms. And also, why can this happen now? That's because for those agents to work, all software vendors, including the large ones that actually, not because they didn't necessarily want to, but because they just had the history of building up very complex infrastructure. They actually had a hard time exposing that data. But they are going huge investments into that now to actually opening up their own systems because they need their own horizontal agents to be able to do all that work. But that is at the same time benefiting the entire ecosystem of software that will be powered with the agentic systems, right, and agents.
Yeah.
So it's really sort of interesting that it's like what we were afraid of, that's sort of like many different solutions for good reasons. And the fact that we're now thinking like, okay, we're gonna kill the silos, all these different systems, we're going into one. I actually do think in like a year down the road, most people will realize actually we are sitting with a much stronger software landscape because we now are capable of deploying many more in a much more efficient way.
Yeah, to add on top there, the importance of the interface. If you have a system which is executing 99% of the job, and then there is one special decision that you have not yet delegated to AI. For you to achieve this 10x time saving, you need to save the time which humans spend on getting the context of that work. So instead of them now taking over the AI and spending the same 20 minutes understanding what the AI has done, you need to have a very special interface where all of the context of the previous done decisions and what exactly needs to happen and what is the information that a human can use to make that decision for AI and teach AI what and how to make those decisions. You need a special interface for that. Otherwise, you're leaving a lot of value on the table.